Swim Things in Blue Springs, your one-stop shop for all things swim. Pools, spas, patio furniture, swimwear, and accessories. Visit them in Blue Springs or at www.swimthings.com.
But generally, what happened to me was a change in mentality. I went from hoping to be an Olympian to telling myself, you are going to be an Olympian. Like, it is going to happen, believing I was going to be an Olympian. And when you go from hope, I hope something happens, to absolute belief, it changes everything, you know? And so there was nothing that was going to stand in my way from representing my country at my home Olympics in a city where I grew up 15 minutes from the Olympic pool. I mean, the Olympic pool was built in my backyard. There's no way I was missing this. And so the mentality shifted, and that's the biggest key. It wasn't a physical thing. I didn't grow bigger. I didn't get stronger.
Our guest today on the journey has enjoyed a lot of success in and out of the pool as one of the few people to have competed at the Olympic Games and then be the coach of an Olympic champion. Brett Hawke, it's good to have you here today on the journey.
Jeff, I appreciate it. Molly, thanks for having me. I was saying a second ago that it's a little awkward to be on the other side getting the questions. Now, I like to be the one giving the questions. But no, I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Yeah, hope you don't sweat a little bit more as the interviewee.
No, we should be good.
So it would take quite a while to list all the great things that you've done as an athlete and as a coach, and you've done a lot. I mentioned in the introduction that you have this connection to the Olympics, but one of the things that really stands out for me was you being able to be a part of 2 national team titles as a swimmer at Auburn University, and then come back a decade later to win as a coach. Not many people get to do that, especially for their alma mater. Now, I was there in 2009 when you were able to hold that trophy for Auburn as a coach, and I could see how much it meant to you then. And not only because you were doing it for the great coach Richard Quick, who was unable to be on deck as he was dealing with the final stages of brain cancer. So when you returned to Auburn to coach in, they believe it was like 2006, did you ever think you would be a coach for a national champion team?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned some of that stuff, because when you hear it, you do reflect on it. It's not something that I think about a lot. It is something I will say, I'll be honest with you, I've thought about more in the last few years of my life than I had previously. I always had this opinion that I've done nothing, like I haven't been successful. I never won an Olympic title. Um, I didn't win as many national titles as I wanted to win. You know, so for me, it was always like I was always chasing the next big thing. I always, in a way, um, felt like not a failure, but I hadn't felt fulfilled. Like I wasn't enjoying the experiences that I was having. It was always, what's the next thing? How do I achieve the next great thing? Move on to the next thing. And you celebrate your successes for a minute, but your failures, you kind of dwell on those for a long time. And so I've always been the type of person that has um, dwelled on the things that haven't gone well and the things I haven't done, and always searching and always reaching. But it has been in the last few years where I've looked back and I thought to myself, Brett, you've done a lot. Like, come on, man, like take a deep breath, and that was part of my transition out of Auburn and into where I am now in life is just more of an appreciation of the things that I have done, and the things that I have been successful in. I'm still goal oriented. I still feel like an underdog. I've got that underdog chip on my shoulder mentality type thing. I've always felt like that. I've always felt like I have to fight. I have to scratch. I have to claw. I have to work hard you know, and so I still set my alarm for 5 o'clock in the morning. I get up even when I don't have to. And I think to myself, what can I do today? How can I be successful today? And they're the things that drive me constantly. And that drives other people around me crazy, to be honest. They try and tell me to stop and smell the roses, and I tell other people to do that all the time, and yet I just don't do it in my own life. So yeah, when I do look back, I have achieved a lot, and I'm considering from where I came from. We all start somewhere, right, Jeff? Molly, like we start somewhere as a kid, and you have these dreams and you have these hopes for your life. And looking back, a lot of those things that I wanted to achieve in my life, I have achieved. Like, I've done those things. I'm a national champion. I'm a two-time Olympian. I'm many different things. I'm a father of four. Like, so I feel successful now that I stop and think about it. Yeah.
And I think we're both in our 40s, and I think it's when you get to this point in your life, it does give you that time and ability to pause and really look back at what you've done in your life, and you have more to look back on, and so you really start to appreciate it more. At least that's the way I've been feeling, and I get the sense you feel that way too.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about your 40s. You kind of have that. I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis, but you do start to reflect more in your 40s. Like, all right, where have I been and where am I going? People around you start to get sick and die. Like, it didn't happen when I was a kid. Everybody just lived forever when I was a kid, and now in my 40s, people that I love and people that I care about have passed on and things like that. So you start to feel a lot more human, and you start to look at the future and think, well, how much time do I have left, and what do I want to achieve, and what do I want to, how do I want to be remembered, or what do I want to leave, what type of legacy, things like that. You start to ask those questions a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think Molly's going to be there, and not next year, but she's got some time to get ready for that. So yeah, Molly, you're going to find when you get to your 40s, it's going to be exactly the same what Brett's talking about. Yeah. So I'm going to go back real quick to that 2009 NCAAs. Again, Auburn men won that NCAA title. What memory stands out the most to you from that week in College Station?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind, Richard Quick was a huge focal point of that championship, right? Like, when David Marsh stepped aside in 2007, I was freaking out. I mean, that's my guy. That's our coach. That's the guy that's won all these championships. I'm like, God, what are we going to do? And David said to me when he left, he said, "Don't worry, I'm going to find someone better than me." And I'm like, who's that? And, a couple of weeks later, Richard Quick is named. And if there was anybody that was better than David Marsh, it was Richard Quick. He was the man, And so I just fell in love with this man immediately. So that championship, he was diagnosed with brain cancer right around Christmas time. So it was only 3 months later that we were contending for this championship. So and he was given 6 months to live at Christmas. So he's halfway through the amount of time he has to live. And he actually did die within 6 months. So about the 3-month mark, he's really sick. And he just happened to be really sick that weekend that we were swimming and competing for the championship. He was spending most of the time over the toilet bowl throwing up, and had a laptop computer next to the toilet watching the swimming while he's dealing with this imminent death. And I was on the phone to his wife, June at the time, and she was giving me updates and telling me that it's really inspiring, Richard, like, tell the boys to keep fighting. I get so emotional about it because it's like I have these memories of that moment, And so that moment, that whole weekend for me was just empty the tank. Whatever you have, you got. Like, there was no fear that weekend. There was no excuses that weekend. It was like, we're coming to fight, so be ready, And that was kind of the mentality the whole weekend, that we didn't feel sorry for ourselves. We weren't nervous. We weren't fearful. It was like, bring it on. Let's go. We got so much strength. We got so much power. We got so much belief. You can't stop us. You can't touch us. And that was kind of the mentality. And man, when you have that mentality, honestly, you can do anything,
Right.
And so our whole team had that. And if there were any moments where there was any doubt, someone would grab them and pull them straight back in. So it was definitely a team feel. So definitely Friday night was a pivotal moment where we were in a battle with Texas Friday night. It was back and forward. And at the end of the night, I think we're a couple of points down going into Saturday. And June called me and said, Richard was doing it really tough that day, but the only thing keeping him going was watching us fight. And so I knew Saturday morning, like, I had to do something. We had to do something. We had to win this thing. It was for Richard. And so I remember having breakfast, going back to my apartment, my room at the hotel. I remember closing the door, turning the lights off, shutting the blinds, and just kind of sitting there and meditating and just thinking, just putting myself in Richard's shoes, just feeling where Richard was and drawing on his energy. And it was a very quiet moment for me, but I needed peace. I needed quiet, and I needed clarity. And I remember walking out of that room, and I'd never felt any clearer on what I had to do and what we were about to do. And I remember walking into the team meeting and just laying it out for the guys. And from that moment, it was a very special moment for me. It was one that's very vivid in my memory in terms of having a very clear picture on exactly what you needed to do and going out and executing it. And I wish, in a way, that had been the Olympic Games, because I don't think anyone could have stopped me at that point in time. Like, when you can tap into something like that, it's a very powerful feeling. So that's kind of the whole championship for me. I don't remember swims. I just remember the feeling that I had. I remember the connection that I had to Richard. And I remember the job that we did in terms of just going out there and performing above and beyond what we were expected to do.
And it must have been, most people who have gone to NCAA championships know that even when the meet isn't happening, it's, as a coach, it's go, go, go. You've got to get, relays get together. You got to make sure all your athletes are set, all the assistant coaches are set. There's so much going on. I'm amazed you had that time to just get that meditation in. That's rare.
Yeah, we had planned for it. We had good leadership. And I had great assistants with me at the time. Everybody was just on their game. Everybody knew that this wasn't a time to slip. This was this was something we had to do, and everybody was tapping into a very similar emotion at that time. The boys were loose, to be honest. The boys were really loose, and that was helpful. They weren't tight and tense, and it wasn't like it was like, we're loose. We got this. Like, we're doing this for Richard. And for that, so for them, it was a looseness. So I didn't want to bring in my aggression into that. Like, I didn't want to change their mentality. I didn't want to switch up the mojo. They had it going. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, just step back a little bit and just take a deep breath, Brett. And that was part of the meditation, is like, you're very emotional right now. Just let some of that out, so that when you go and you connect with these guys, because I think energies do connect. And so when I connected with them, I wanted to be on the same energy level. I didn't want to bring in a different energy level and switch it all up and bring tension to what they were doing. So there was a relaxed focus and a feeling that I hadn't felt in any championship team before.
So for those viewers who can't tell by now by his accent, Brett Hawke was born and raised in Australia. And it's actually kind of interesting that in 2009, you actually became an American citizen too. What convinced you that you wanted to leave Australia and travel to the other side of the world to go to college in Auburn, Alabama in 1996?
At that time, it was a matter of circumstance. Like, I had no other options. I was down to basically quitting swimming. I'd missed the Olympic team by 3/100ths of a second. And I sat there watching the 1996 Olympics on TV and watching a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I felt like I may have been better than at that time swimming at the Olympic Games, and I felt like I'd missed a massive opportunity, and I thought I would never get it again. A lot of people say you only get one shot at the Olympics, and that's what I truly believed. At the age of 21, felt like my Olympic dream was over, and I had been working for Pizza Hut for 3 years at that time, delivering pizzas to earn money to finance myself for this swimming dream, this swimming career. That's what I was doing. I would deliver pizzas all night. I'd go to practice. I'd deliver pizzas till about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd sleep a few hours. I'd go to practice. I'd practice in the morning. Then I'd sleep during the day, get up and have a late meal, go to practice. And then straight from practice, I would go to Pizza Hut and I'd deliver pizzas. And I did this for 3 years. So when you miss the Olympic team by 300s, that's it. There's no other option after that. You're done. And so when a glimmer of hope of an American scholarship came up at the time, I just jumped at it. I was like, really? I can swim and study, and people are going to pay me to do this? Like, this was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life. And I didn't really know about this until kind of that moment. So I fell into this team at Auburn University. Literally, I didn't look anywhere else. I walked onto the pool deck after the World Short Course Championships in 1995. I walked onto the pool deck and met David Marsh at Auburn because one of my friends was going to school there. So I just stopped in to see him, and I walked onto the pool deck and someone introduced me to David Marsh, and that was kind of how it started. And then the next year when I missed the Olympic team, I was like, okay, well, I've got this connection. Let me do that and pivot. And boom, I was gone. I was off to America, and my whole life changed after that.
After that 95, 96 heartbreak, you were able to represent the Aussies at the 2000 and 2004 Olympics. What a thrill it must have been to be able to compete at a home Olympics in 2000.
Yeah, I mean, that was incredible. For me, it was, and I want this message to get out to other people that are going to be in similar situations. For me, it was a change in mentality. Now, I had, since 96, in the lead up to 2000, I had been coached by one of the greatest coaches in history, David Marsh. I was part of some amazing teams. So I had gained experience. But generally, what happened to me was a change in mentality. I went from hoping to be an Olympian to telling myself, you are going to be an Olympian. Like, it is going to happen, believing I was going to be an Olympian. And when you go from hope, I hope something happens, to absolute belief, it changes everything, And so there was nothing that was going to stand in my way from representing my country at my home Olympics in a city where I grew up 15 minutes from the Olympic pool. I mean, the Olympic pool was built in my backyard. There was no way I was missing this. And so the mentality shifted, and that's the biggest key. It wasn't a physical thing. I didn't grow bigger. I didn't get stronger. Nothing physically changed. It was a mental approach. And so I knew without a doubt, months out, that I was going to make this Olympic team. I just had to go and do it. It was almost like getting dressed in the morning. You wake up, you do it, you get it done. That's not to say that I wasn't nervous on the day. I was very, very nervous on the day, but I had done the work in order to put myself in a position to make this Olympic team. So the mentality shift was huge. And being a part of the greatest team in Australian Olympic history. I mean, I was on a team with Ian Thorpe, with Grant Hackett, with Kieran Perkins, Michael Klim, Susie O'Neill, Patria Thomas. I mean, some of the greatest Australian swimmers in history. I was on that team. And so I feel very blessed to be associated in a small group of people that were considered to be the greatest in history. I'm very honored to be a part of that team.
And like you said, it was in your backyard, I'm sure. It meant a lot to have your family there as well, cheering you on.
I hated it. I hated every second of it. I hated it. I hated when I had that pressure and expectation that family would put on me. And this is just me, right? Like, I did better when people didn't expect things, and where I could just go out and be myself and just let it rip. When I had 300 people sitting in the grandstand at the Olympic Games and everybody expected me to win this race, there was an enormous pressure for me. And in the lead up to it, just dealing with the whole ticket issue and, organizing people to be here and be there. It was just messy in my head. I didn't need it. Like, I just wanted to go to the Olympics and race, but there was all this noise, you know, and there's a lot more noise with the Olympics. You don't realize it until you actually get to the event itself. But even in the lead up, there was so much noise. To be part of the Australian team, everybody wanted you to come to a function, you know, before, like a fundraising function, or they wanted to put you on display, you know, months out of the Olympics, to say, hey, he's going to the Olympics, let's do this. So there's all this stuff going on. It was just noisy. And then you get to the Olympics and it's a media event. You know, Bob Bowman has told me this. He's like, Brett, the Olympics is an athletic event centered around a media event. You know, it's all about the media. So you learn a lot at the Olympic Games, especially your first one. And so I hated the fact that my parents were sitting in the stands, and I just wanted them to watch on TV and just let me do my thing. But that wasn't the case on that one. So in Athens, the second time round, I said, no one's coming. I'm not letting you come. Like, you got to watch it on TV. I'm sorry. Like, I've got to go and I got to do my thing. This is work. I don't come and watch you. I don't sit in the corner and watch you work. You know, you would hate that. So let me go and do my work. And they respected my wishes this time around because I gave them the chance the first time. So that was good.
That's a very interesting perspective on having a home Olympics, because a lot of people do say that it is more intense and the spotlight is on you more, but they also say it kind of revs you up more because you know that 95% of the people in the stands are there cheering for you the whole time.
It was 20 years ago, and I can distinctly remember the feeling I had when I walked out you have this little corridor and you can kind of see the crowd, you know, in the ready room. They have the ready room, and then they have a corridor that you walk out onto the pool deck, and they line us up in this corridor, and I'm feeling pretty good in the corridor. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty loose. I'm obviously buzzing. I'm nervous, but I'm amped. I'm ready. But as soon as I take that first step out of that corridor, the whole stadium, because I'm wearing the Australian swim cap, the whole stadium erupts like something I've never heard before. We're swimmers. We don't swim in front of 17,000 people. You know, I've never experienced this before. And so I this feeling on my chest, like I couldn't breathe, like a heaviness, like, oh my God. Like, and then my body just went numb. Like, I went completely numb. And I remember walking, as I was walking to the block, because we're the 50 freestyles, so you got to walk all the way to the other end of the pool. I remember walking down the pool and I couldn't feel my legs. I'm walking, but I'm like, how am I getting to the other side? Because I can't feel anything. I was completely numb. So not only am I numb, I can't breathe. So all this is going on physically, and you've got to go out there and perform the best you've ever performed. I mean, it was very, very intense for me. And then right in front of me, I'm in lane 6 for the prelims and the semis, by the way, same people lined up. So the prelims, I'm in lane 6. Peter Van den Hoogenbaan, who just broke the 100 freestyle world record, was in lane 5. Alex Popov, who is my idol, he's in lane 4. So I'm lined up next to these guys for both the prelims and the semifinal in exactly the same order. Popov 4, Hoogenband 5, me in 6. So you can imagine the pressure that I was definitely feeling in my first Olympics.
Yeah, you actually kind of took me back to the 92 Olympic trials, and I felt like the same way. I was like, my body, I was out of my body because I was just like, what is going on? I was just like, my insides were about to wanted to be outside of me.
Yeah.
Such a weird experience.
Yeah, it's so weird.
You know, in the middle of all this, you know, the Olympics and having this success in the pool that you had been longing for since 95 and 96. You had some other stuff going on. I understand you had a younger brother who had been in and out of prison as a result of his drug addiction. How did that affect you mentally in racing and just kind of doing your job?
Yeah, I'm okay with talking about this because it's been many years now. My brother actually is still in prison to this day, or he's back in prison, and he's still a drug addict, unfortunately, all these years later. But my brother started taking drugs at the age of 16 when I was 18. So I'm 2 years older than my brother. And I always had the responsibility from my parents to be the big brother. You're the guy that needs to look after your younger brother. So from a very, very young age, I always had to look after my brother, and I always had to protect him. I always had to be there for him. I always had to stick up for him. And my brother wasn't diagnosed at the time, but looking back, he certainly had ADHD or ADD or whatever it is. He has some attention deficit issues for sure. When we were kids, we were actually riding bikes down a hill, and I was behind him, and we were racing home, and we're racing, and he's in front of me by a few feet, and we're racing. We're going as fast as we can down this hill, and he's doing this with his handlebars, and boom, they pop off. His handlebars pop off, and then I just see his bike snake and then throw him. And we're not wearing helmets at this age. I'm about 8 years old. He's about 6 years old, and he gets thrown off this bike going 100 miles an hour down a hill and lands on the concrete, smacks his head. And I remember like stopping as fast as I could, running back to him, and he was laying in a pool of blood. His head had been cracked open, and he was convulsing. I thought he was dying. So I drag him off the road before he gets hit by a car, and run to the house and call an ambulance. Anyway, long story short, he fractured his skull, needed a lot of stitches. But I honestly think from that time, he suffered some type of brain damage. I don't know what happened, but along with that incident and some ADHD and just some delinquency issues, as we got older, it became a lot harder to control my brother and be the big brother that I needed to be. And so at some point I started to detach myself from him in terms of the choices he was making. He was getting expelled from schools. He was getting into fights. I just couldn't keep up with him. And then, like I said, at the age of 16, he started taking drugs fairly heavily and became a drug addict. So at the age of 18, I was 20. At the age of 18, my brother got sentenced to prison for the first time. And within a couple of weeks, I had qualified for my first Australian team at the age of 20. So here's my parents who've got two sons, and one of them goes to prison. The other one makes the Australian team for the first time, both at exactly the same time. So it's a very strange way to grow up. It's a very rough childhood that I had. It was one of those things that I just wanted to get away from it. And so going to America was a good thing. I was kind of running away from all of that nonsense that was going on with my brother. And to this day, I still think it drives me that I want to maximize whatever talent I have. I want to maximize, because my brother was so talented at everything we did. He was always better than me at it. And he went the other way in life, and that really disappoints me. And like I said, he's still in prison now, and he's still a drug addict now, 25 years later. And it's so disappointing to see someone that you love and someone you care about choose that path. And so I've always decided that, hey, whatever talent I have, I'm going to maximize it. I'm going to push myself beyond. So I kind of went the exact opposite way than he did.
Sounds like a lot of the decisions you make are because of your brother. You have your brother on your mind with that.
I think so. I'm beyond thinking about my brother now, but I started to make decisions early on to say, like, to push myself to say, we all have those moments when we don't want to get out of bed. And I would think to myself, my brother would make that decision. Like he would make the wrong decision right now. I'm going to make the opposite decision. I'd go the other way. So I conditioned myself. So I don't think about him anymore in my decision making, but I think early on it conditioned me to make decisions that I might not have normally made. Was
your brother also an athlete?
Yeah, my brother was pretty much, because I was his big brother, we did everything together. So we surfed together, we swam together, we played rugby. We did everything the same. My parents didn't want to go to different venues. So it was like, all right, you're both going to swim, right? You're both going to the beach. Everything was the same. And so everything we did, he did it better than me. He was just so good. He was so talented. And everything just came natural to him. If he picked up a surfboard, he would be in barrels, within a couple of weeks. If he swam, he would, he just did everything so well. And to see his life just disintegrate because of a drug habit, it's just so sad. And to be honest, I thought my brother would be dead by now. I'm going to be the one that dies before him too. That's the way it's going to go in life. He's the one with the drug habit, and I'm the one that's going to die before him. So it's funny how life works, but he was just good at everything.
Looking back now, do you have any thought, should I have known, should I have stepped in as a big brother in certain situations?
I think I had certainly moments of guilt like that, but I think with anything in life or anybody in life, like, you can't fully control the decision making of somebody else, no matter how much you love and care for them. You just can't fully control their decision making, and so you have to just make the choice to detach yourself from that, as hard as that can be at times. And I haven't spoken to my brother in 6 years out of choice. I just choose not to speak to him because I think the drugs have made him into somebody that I just don't even recognize anymore. Whereas my parents are always going to be, his parents, and so they can't let go. Whereas I, in a way, have let go of trying to hang on to whatever ideal I had of my brother.
Well, even with all that and the dramatic impact it had on your life, I mean, to be able to not just make those Olympic teams in 2000 and 2004, but to be a national record holder for Australia, and to still be able to chart this path forward when there's that going on in your family life is pretty remarkable, Brett. I think a lot of people who are watching this are going to say, they probably have the same issue, and it's probably very difficult for them to be able to continue on the destination, the journey that they're on, without having to be distracted, as it were, by someone who is spiraling downward. So it's pretty remarkable that you're able to do that, and that after all this, that you decided that, after the Olympics and after you retired, that you were going to be a coach too. I mean, what was behind that decision?
I didn't fully intend to be a coach. I hadn't finished my degree from Auburn. It was something that was hanging over my head. And again, I don't like to leave things unfinished. If I start something, I got to finish it. And so going back to Australia in 2000, I had to make the decision to leave college early. I'd only done 2.5 years of college, but I knew it was the only way that I was going to make this Australian team. So it was just part of the decision process I had to make, was to say to David Marsh, like, all right, I'm leaving college early. I'm going back. Got to make this team. And then I ended up swimming professionally for 7 years. I didn't miss an Australian team for 7 years. Here I was at the age of 25 in the year 2000. I'd never made an Australian long course team before. And then from the age of 25 to 31, I never missed a team. And again, it goes back to that mindset. When you make a decision, nothing can stop you. So I swam for Australia for 7 years. And so retiring, I didn't have any injuries. I was one of the best swimmers in the world, but I just felt like I'd done enough. Like I had achieved everything I wanted to achieve in swimming. And I needed to go back to America and finish my degree and then move on with the rest of my life. So I asked David if I could come back, and he said, yeah, come back, finish your degree. And as soon as I got back there, one of David's assistant coaches, Ralph Crocker, was diagnosed with cancer. And so for that summer in 2006, while I was in school, David had asked me if I could just help out the team while he found an assistant coach to replace Ralph, who was sick and had to retire. And so I said, of course, yeah, I'll help out the team. I don't know anything about coaching, but let me give it a shot. So he gave me a group of about 10 athletes at that summer that, either he didn't connect with or couldn't work with, or it was just a problem for him, or just people that didn't really click in his group, or he just sort of gave me the kids that he didn't want to work with. It's like, here's some athletes. So one of them was Cesar Cielo, who David wanted to work with, but had put him in the middle distance group, and Cesar didn't want to be in the middle distance group. So he was kicking and screaming. So David said to me, hey, I think this kid's going to leave. He's really talented. I don't want him to leave. So why don't you just work with him for the summer and see what you can get out of him? Just keep him here, keep him happy, show him some things about sprinting that you know, and teach him some things. Like, okay, great. So that was kind of my role for the summer, was to keep this group happy and get them to swim fast. And so I asked David at the time, like, what are my restrictions? And he's like, none. You do whatever you want with them, whenever you want, however you want. So we had this little group that kind of just did our own thing. And we had so much fun that summer. It was like, I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted. I didn't know anything about coaching other than what I had seen and obviously the great mentors I'd had, but I wasn't restricted to a way of doing things. So I just came in and did things the way I wanted to do things. And David, to his credit, gave me the freedom to create. So I just created these really fun workouts, and not all of them consisted of just swimming up and down the pool. We did some stuff on the dry land, and we were doing all sorts of equipment. And I think I changed the game in the way that sprinters are coached these days. I think that was the start of the NC States, and the way that people are doing things now was basically me and what I did that summer, a lot of it. And we had some fun, and they all swam fast. And 2 years later, Cesar Cielo is Olympic champion. So it all happened very, very quick.
Yeah, I mean, to have that kind of success as a coach just that quickly is really, I mean, yes, part of it is luck, but I think a lot of it is just, you had this untapped potential, you had, and look where it got you. To speak about Cesar's Olympics and in 2008 when he won the 50 freestyle, we all watched him when he, broke down after the race and he was crying buckets on the awards podium. I'm sure it was very, very difficult for you to hold it together right there on the deck.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I cried. I cried because of what it meant to his country, primarily. Obviously, for him, I was very emotional and what it would mean for him. But to be part of the Brazilian team, they really opened the door for me. They really let me in to the family. They brought me in and accepted me. And I didn't speak the language, but we shared a passion together. We shared the swimming passion, and they really opened up for me. And I think they appreciated the things that I was doing with Cesar, and they were interested. It was different at the time, so they were asking questions, and it was great. It was just a great partnership. And then Cesar wins the first Olympic gold in Brazil swimming's history. I mean, that's massive. I mean, that wasn't lost on me, how big that was. And so to see the people around me crying, who I was like, you don't even coach this guy, and you're crying like he's your son. It was like that. They were that passionate about it for what it meant for the country. So it was impossible to hold back the tears during that medal ceremony.
And there's no going back after that. You're going to be a coach for life after that. I can't imagine you ever thought, well, maybe I might try some other career path.
Actually, to be quite honest, I thought, well, that's it. Like, I'm not going to top this. I might as well go and do something else now. I was like, 2 years in, Olympic champion. What else can I do? All right.
Mic drop.
Yeah, that was kind of it. It was like, oh man, Brett, you're in trouble now. Like, it's only downhill from here. So there were moments where I thought to myself, well, that was fun. That was a good 2 years. Now what am I really going to do? But no, I got trapped into it and got sucked into it. And I think coaching is definitely a passion that pulls you in and takes a hold of you eventually. Yeah.
Over the years, why do you think coaching has been such a good fit for you?
I'm not good at anything else. I think I do have a talent for it. I think I have a gift for it, and I've tried to maximize whatever gift I have. And I actually enjoy coaching more than I enjoyed swimming. Swimming was very selfish for me. Coaching is very, you open yourself up to everybody, and that can be tough because when it's just about you, you're hard on yourself. But when you let somebody else down, oh man, that kills. It really hurts. And sometimes I would go to like an NCAA meet, and we would have an incredible meet, and there'd be one or two athletes that didn't hit, and I would just feel for them really deeply, and that affected me as a young coach. It was tough. Like, I don't think I did well. That was certainly learning experiences for me in terms of dealing with the disappointments, because you put so much into the season, and when you see other people hit, you're like, great, that's what I expected. But then the ones that miss, you're like, well, what went wrong? And so you just kind of dwell on that so much, and it eats you up. And I think over time, actually, it took a toll on me for sure.
So you have a podcast called Inside
Mm-hmm.
with Brett Hawke.
Mm-hmm.
And you have covered some of the most fastest swimmers in their respective strokes, from Popov to Torpedo, Gary Hall Jr., Lezak, Lochte, just to name a few. What does Brett Hawke think a champion is, looks like, acts like?
Wow, that's a really good question. It's a tough question, but I think ultimately you have to have a few different elements. Like all the athletes that you just talked about, there's no denying that they're super talented, right? But I can't remember who it was. Somebody told me just recently, when you walk into an Olympic final, the whole room's talented. Everybody's got, I think it was Flo Manadou. Flo Manadou told me this. He said, Brett, when you walk in, everybody's talented and everybody's got their weapons. He called them weapons. Everybody has their strengths and everybody has their weaknesses. And what you have to do is you have to believe that your strengths are more powerful, your weapons are more powerful than anybody else in the room. You just have to believe in yourself. And I think ultimately that's what the true champions do. They are extremely talented, but they have a belief in themselves. And there's also this element of performing under pressure. And this is where I am a little bit critical of myself. I didn't perform well enough under pressure. I performed well, but there were moments when the spotlight was on me and I just could not control my heart rate, or I could not control the thoughts that were going through my head, or the doubts that were in my head, or I couldn't just relax and enjoy the moment. And I've had moments coaching now where I've thought to myself, I'm coaching an athlete through the things that I should have done, or I wanted to do, or I think you should do in order to be successful. And part of that is just enjoying the experience. And it's so difficult. Let's say for a 50 freestyle, you've got 20, 21 seconds where you've got to do everything perfectly and your life can change. And everybody knows that. But it's the person that can perform the best under those lights that ultimately wins the race. And, when I talk to Alex Popov, when I talk to Gary Hall Jr., these types of athletes, they have a certain comfort level under the lights. And look, we all train hard. We're all coached well. We all do the right things. But when you're under the spotlight, that's when it really matters. That's when it really counts. You saw a swim like Jason Lezak in the relay of 2008, where he swims over the top of the French swimmers and has that amazing Olympic performance. That was Jason Lezak just freeing himself up to be Jason Lezak. He didn't do that in other moments. He wasn't the dominant figure throughout his career in terms of winning every race. But in that moment, he allowed himself to be great. And I think that's what the best athletes do on a consistent level. They just allow themselves to be champions. And that it's actually a lot more difficult than it sounds.
Yeah, very, very difficult. It is extremely. But I mean, unfortunately, even though the only thing I think you haven't been able to check off your swimming wish list is to have that Olympic medal around your neck, I think a lot of people would classify you as a champion for all the things you've done for yourself and to be able to do for others as a coach. So don't count yourself out as being one of them. That's for sure.
Well, listen, I have put on the medals of Cesar Cielo and Fred Bousquet and Matt Target and all the people that I've helped coach get to the top of the podium. And I'm telling you, when I put their medals on, I feel like I won an Olympic medal. I really do. I feel part of that. I feel like it's a partnership, and I'm certainly not taking away from them and their performance, but I feel very honored to be a part of their performance. And it certainly feels like I have won an Olympic title before certainly with Cesar Cielo. Yeah.
So what's the next big goal for you?
Uh, I don't know. I'm really enjoying the podcasting. Like I'm enjoying talking to some of the greatest athletes in history. I don't know where that's going to go, but I really enjoy pushing myself there and getting better at it and challenging and trying to find ways to produce better podcasts. Right now I feel very kind of cheap in terms of the way I produce it. So I'd love to have a studio one day. That would be my next big dream, to have a studio and we talk about swimming, or we talk about performance in a studio setting. That would be incredible. But so we'll see where it goes. But right now I'm doing some volunteer coaching with USC. So I'm back on the deck doing some stuff with them. That's a lot of fun. I work full time for Fitter and Faster swim clinics, and I feel like I'm able to give back to the swimming community through what we do at Fitter and Faster. So that's incredible. So I feel very fulfilled right now professionally.
That's good. And I can tell a lot of the people who are giving back to the sport, they always say it's really very fulfilling. Even you probably think it's a job, but it really becomes more than that. It becomes something that it's a passion more than just getting that paycheck.
Yeah, I look at my paycheck to pay the bills, but I don't look at it to see myself amassing some fortune. It's just like I wake up every day and I'm passionate about the things that I do, and that enables, pays me as well, which is nice. So it's nice when you can get paid for your own passions.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thank you very much, Brett, for joining us today. We have caught you probably somewhere in the middle of your journey through your swimming life, and we are so appreciative of what you've done before, and we look forward to what's coming after.
All right, Jeff and Molly, really appreciate you guys having me, and thanks for good luck with your own journey as well.
Yeah. And thanks to our viewers for watching. And remember, please go to subscribe to Brett's podcast. Again, it's called Inside with Brett Hawke. He's had some fantastic people on his show, and I know he's got a lot more lined up. So don't forget to watch those and subscribe to his channel. Please also subscribe to our channel and let others know about the show. And remember, it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey.